Okay, so now we've replaced the bearing here. We've pressure filled this bearing. We've pressure filled this bearing. We've greased the roller bearing with blue grease, marine grease. Now we'll put this back together. Make sure the screws are tight. You don't have to strip the threads on them. Now I always use a pair of pliers to put the screw in place. There. So now we put this cover back on, it just snaps into place. Be careful with this, you don't want to damage it. So once it's back into position, replace the screw. Okay, so now that's everything's working there. So now what I like to do is take some marine grease. You don't need much, just a sliver will do. And spread it all around the inside of the reel, just on the aluminum surfaces. To give everything a little bit of extra protection against corrosion, and it'll help smooth out the reel. Like I said, you don't need much, but there's no such thing as too much protection. You don't want blobs of it because you don't want it getting in the drags. So put some Corrosion X. And again, spread that all around the reel. Now we can start reassembling it. The first thing we do is put the pinion gear on. Put the springs in, and what I like to do is just dip the springs in a little bit of grease, and it helps hold them in place. And we take our ratchet washer, make sure it's good and clean. Put it over, make sure it's seated on the bottom. Take the drag washer. I like to use plenty of grease. Put the drag washer over the top. And grease both sides with the drag grease. Then take your cog, drive gear, put the drive gear on. Same thing. Give it a good coating of grease. Put the drag washer in. Another coating of grease on the drag washer. And then put the key washer in. Now take the side cover, put it in place and lock it. I'll take that off first. Take the C-clip, gently put that on. Got to be careful not to scratch the reel. Put a tad of grease on the cogs on drive gear. Don't need a lot, just enough to lightly coat the sides and wipe any excess off the top of the drag washers. You don't want the marine grease getting into the drag, so just take off any excess. Replace the inner roll-in bearing. Put the cover back on. Put the screws in. Don't worry if you got a little bit of grease all over the reel. You wipe that off after everything's put back together. I like to have a little bit of grease on everything anyways. If you do slip, it'll help prevent the scratches. With this side screw here, it is a plastic body that it's going into. So be careful that you don't put it in sideways. Make sure the thread's nice and straight. Tighten that up. Now the next thing is the spring washers, and make sure that you have the concave facing each other. Put the washer. And tighten it down. Put the spring. That on. Handle over the top. Make sure you don't get any of these cross-threaded when you're putting them on. And tighten it up. Make sure it's nice and tight. Open up the side cover. Everything a good wipe down. And they're very smooth reel. You will find it a little stiffer because you've added grease that's usually not normally there. But it's super smooth. And the drag is really smooth. No squeaking or chattering. So that's how to upgrade your new Curado eye. And the drag fix. One of the best Curados ever made, for sure.